What's up everybody, my name is Ryan Kraus and this is the Crucible Coachworks page. This is our first YouTube video and today I'm just gonna walk around and talk about the shop, the equipment inside of it, talk about the Slantnose some, maybe a little bit about our secret project, I don't know. But let's just dig in. Cue the intro clip that we definitely have. I think it's probably appropriate to start with the Slantnose. That's what you may be here for in the first place. You might follow me over on TikTok or Instagram. TikTok's at Ryan Kraus or Instagram's at Kraus, and also our Crucible Coachworks pages, which are like at Crucible Coachworks. Anyway, this car is what the internet knows, and we have other projects too that are coming up. But I'm gonna start out by just talking about the car and just showing you around it. So this is a Porsche 996. It's the 1999 911. It's the first water-cooled generation 911 that Porsche made. This is our prototype conversion that we now offer. I say now as if we have one completed, but we do not have one completed. This is our first one, obviously. And basically, we wanted to make what Porsche would have possibly made if they wanted to bring back the Slantnose between the 996 and 997 generation 911s. This conversion features full handmade steel paneling, and the bumpers are also proprietary that we made in-house, as you can see up front. This is a 997 bumper that we used modeling clay over top of to make a plug that we're going to be making out of fiberglass or carbon fiber, depending what the customer may desire. So yeah, we wanted to make what we believe Porsche would have made between the models of the 996 and 997. When Porsche does like special edition cars, they usually feature parts of the newer vehicles. Think like between like the 997 and 991, they would have used 991 parts on earlier cars, usually like a debut or a special edition thing. So this, we used a 997 GT3 front bumper as the base because that comes out from the 996. So the 997 bumper is just, you know, like a little peek into the future. We wanted to make it like this car was built in like the 2005 era. So the styling and everything else should be remotely reflecting that. So yeah, this car is like a homage to the Slantnose and the GT1. I know some people say homage or homage or whatever, but I don't say it right, so bear with me. Much like the 935 Slantnose, we're putting louvers up here. As you see, I just have slats cut in that are gonna eventually be formed into the shape of the louvers, but right now they're just slats and they're placeholders, and they might even end up moving, I'm not sure, but right now I like where they're at and we're rolling with it. This other side over here does not have them yet, and that's because I want to be 100% certain that this side is perfectly where we want it to be, and then I will mirror it in that side exactly in the same spot. Also, like the 997 GT3 and other GT3 cars, we're doing a center vent that runs up the front of the hood here. There's another Porsche vehicle that has the like inset hood with peaks here on the fenders. That's what we took design from, interpretation of design from. I was thinking it's like the 918 that has that, if I remember correctly. With that, if you're familiar with the GT3 or other cars that have the center vents, there's usually a cooler in the front up here that sucks air through and it runs up, that directs air over the top of the car, creating more downforce and better, less drag essentially. So yeah, that's probably what we're gonna do here. As you can see here, we also retain these side markers. I really like the style of these side markers. This is 997.2 bumper with the turn signals here. I'm a huge fan of the 0.1. And then for the headlight up here, we have these DOT approved high beam, low beam lights that we're gonna be making housings for. I actually have a 3D printer and 3D scanner, everything else here in the shop that eventually I'm gonna make them molds to these housings that will be fully adjustable, and we'll have a lens over top most likely. Now this front grille here, I have it out of aluminum. It was just a mock-up. It'll probably end up being like ABS plastic or maybe even fiberglass. I'm not 100% sure on what the final outcome will be of the material, but right now it's aluminum just because it was easiest to make the prototype, and it will not stay as aluminum. One of the biggest challenges of this design is to have the front end actually flow into the back end of the car and have it not look awkward. And also to have actual headlights in the front bumper, or above the bumper rather, that weren't in the lower like fog light area of the other cars. Like the 935 race car that did not have the pop-ups, the headlights are actually down lower where the ductwork is here. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to challenge ourselves and bring the headlights up and have it actually fit in the design of the car. I know that it looks a lot similar to other cars that are on the market. And I mean, they built cars for what, the past 135 years or so. I think that we can safely say that every car you can find design elements that may look like another car that's on the market, or it may have been like a one-off car. So that being said, I am very happy with the front end of this car. I think that turned out great. I think that it looks unique. Yes, it looks a little bit like some other cars you can do. I hear a lot that like it sounds like the 300ZX maybe, or it looks like the Saturn like SC2 or whatever, but I think it looks pretty cool. We do have renderings done, by the way. Maloney X Media did renderings for us. I will put them in the video here, and they're right now. As you can see, it's very close to the design that we're shooting for. It is his interpretation, so it's a little different, but at the same time, you can get the overall concept of it. So yeah, these front fenders are fully hand-formed steel. I made them myself in the shop here. They are 19 gauge steel. They're pretty light, actually. I get a lot of comments of people saying like, oh, this is gonna be a car to be so heavy. It's not heavy. In fact, there's a video over on my TikTok where I weighed one of the quarter panels, and I think it weighed in at like 11 pounds. It really isn't that heavy. So moving to the back of the car here, this is our rear quarter panel. It's very GT1 inspired, especially with this intake here. You'll see that if you look up a picture of a GT1, it looks very similar. But yeah, I have ductwork that I'm actually currently modeling right now on the computer that will go inside there and direct the air around to the back coolers if it's a turbo, or if we have other options that we're working on that would need coolers, that's where they would live. And then it would vent out the back of the bumper here. We have a slat up here, and then the slat also runs down along the side of the car. Actually, I think over here I have beginnings of the mock-up for the other, what's gonna look like here. The air will come through the front, shoot out the back here, and wrap around the back of the car, down the back of the bumper rather. And then also we're gonna have a diffuser on the bottom of the car that wraps along the bottom of the bumper and like kind of ties in well with the edges of the bumper that wrap around. That's gonna be a diffuser to add more downforce and again, give it a more aggressive, racy look like a GT1 would have, but still maintain its streetability. So it'll be functional, it'll look good, but also not look too aggressive either. But yeah, these quarter panels again are hand-shaped steel. This one I made out of 1, 2, 3, 4 panels, I believe. In fact, I get a lot of questions about how I make sure that like side to side it's symmetrical or whatever. What I did, we actually used a wireframe buck. Initially, when we made this car, we did the entire side of this car in clay. I did really rough steel work and put clay over top of it. So I used clay on that side of the car, and then we just messed with the design over and over and over again to came up with something that we liked. And then I used a wire and made a wireform buck. Rather than talk about it, just show you what it looks like. So this is the wireform buck I was talking about. As you can see, it's just, I took profile lines, bent this steel wire to be the shape I needed it to be that matched the clay on the car, and then transposed it onto a stand that I can then make the panels for, lay them on top of it, check to see if they actually fit the profiling that I wanted it to, and then I could eventually tack them together and then set it on the car and it fit perfectly. Now, this design changed a little bit since we made this, so this thing's pretty much useless at this point. The quarter panel changed a little bit. We changed the cutout for the vent here. We changed a little bit of the radiuses to make it flow a little bit better. That's all part of the design process. So eventually the plan is to use my 3D scanner I have that Creality sent me and scan these panels and then cut them, basically take that model and then slice it up on a 3D modeling program that have them CNC cut out of wood and then have wooden bucks. And then performance-wise, we have a couple ideas for the engine on this car. I don't want to divulge too much of it because we're not 100% sure what's specifically going in this model. Now, if you were to commission a car with us, we could do pretty much whatever you wanted for the engine. We would want to stay in the Porsche family though, or we would still be open to doing like an EV conversion or similar. But right now, this car in particular, we have a 997.1S engine, which is a 3.8 liter that will likely go into this. Or I might throw the original 996 engine back into this with a couple modifications to give it a lot of extra power. And also we really want to do ITBs on top. We'd like the sound, we'd like the look. So that'll happen eventually here. But as you can see, it's barren. And also we still need suspension work. We're going to do a lot of suspension work to make it actually perform and handle like it looks. So it'll be wide and low and look awesome, but it'll actually perform well too. If you guys have any more questions about the car, like in particular, you can drop them in the comments. You can comment on my other posts on Instagram or TikTok, and I usually respond to them. Actually, it's easiest to respond on TikTok. It's usually TikTok video responses, but I will try to touch on the biggest ones here as well. These videos, we're gonna try to do them weekly-ish. So we're really busy, but we're gonna do my best I can to do that. Eventually, I'll probably have someone else edit them to save time. But right now, this is just you know, we're just starting out. Now I think we should talk about the shop. So first off, I would like to say that Crucible Coachworks is like attached to Translog for Porsche. This is the shirt I'm wearing here. Translog for Porsche is owned by Anthony Miller, who is the co-owner of Crucible Coachworks alongside me. I've worked for Anthony for, wow, almost 6 years now at Translog. At Translog for Porsche, we just do regular service work or paint work or custom body work. Basically, if it's Porsche, we do it. For example, as you can see over in the corner, this is my favorite back corner to work in because it's kind of like condensed the rest of the shop. Pop out here so you can see this is the shop in general. This is a nice little corner to work in to make a big mess because it doesn't just throw dust all over the rest of the shop too much. Sorry, that made you dizzy. But this is the project I'm currently working on. It's a floor repair, or floor replacement rather, and I did some rocker reinforcement on this 75, I believe it is, 911. This car was converted to a cabrio way before cabrios even existed, so it does not, it was pretty rough. In fact, the car, you couldn't even close the doors on the lift, it was so saggy. So what I did was I took quarter panels from donor 911s that were cabrios and fit them up to this car with a lot of measurements and welding and cleaning and everything else. I cut them off with 2 rear end clips, one for each side. That's why one's red and one's white. But now we have a top that actually functions correctly. So now I'm going through and just fixing any rust that needs to be done, because if we're gonna do a lot of custom work on a car, we don't wanna leave rust underneath because we don't think that's the right way to do it. Both the quarter panels are off the car because there originally was a narrow body car. We got SC quarter panels off the donor cars that we took the inner pieces off of, that I straightened out and stripped down, and they're gonna be going onto this car along with the front fenders and get it cleaned up and everything else. So this isn't like a full restoration per se, but it's definitely getting an all-over treatment that will make it a very solid car and a great presenting vehicle. Also, Anthony Miller is not here today. He doesn't really do the whole social media thing, even though I'm trying to get him onto it. He's just a different generation that doesn't understand the internet as much, but that's okay. So we're gonna get him on here at some point, and he's gonna be in these videos. He's just not here today, so you guys will get to meet him eventually. So let's take a tour around the shop. So when you first walk in, Slantnose is right here. We have the fab area to the right. We have this is our welding setup. This is our Tig Welder. It's an ESAB 2200i is what it is, yeah. It's water cooled. Our water cooler actually isn't working right now because we need a fitting. So ESAB, if you're watching this, hit me up because we need a new fitting here because ours is cracked. And that may or may not have been my fault. I don't really know. But yeah, we have a welding cart here with a jig fixture on top of it. This thing's really handy. I love this welder. It does a great job of welding sheet metal and other things. I really like ESAB equipment, so yeah. This is a Liebert shear that we had converted to be a Pullmax style machine. Now, the post height isn't terribly high, so we couldn't do, we're still working on figuring out how to make dies that will fit inside here appropriately and get different profiles we want. But right now, it's just set up to do thumbnail shrinking dies. We have the steel style here these are Proline from Trick Tools. We're a huge fan of Trick Tools. Basically, the way the machine works, if you aren't familiar, this head will go up and down and massage the panel into the shape of the thumbnail die here. And you can use it to shrink steel or aluminum too. These are meant for steel. We have these Delrin dies also. These are meant for aluminum. They're not marring. So yeah, that's our Liebert shear converted to be like a Pullmax style machine. Next door to that, we have our Boss 16 Woodward Fab brake. I love this thing. I'm so glad we got it. I used to bend steel with a vise or other things around the shop. Phenomenal. Below, we keep all our scrap, all the pigtails that we cut off, panels or whatever. There's our scrap bin. This is where you go if you want to cut your hands. I often cut my hands on it. It's basically where I always cut my hands. Over to the left here, we have our English wheel. This is a Metal Ace 44F Imperial cast wheel. This is my favorite thing in the shop. This wheel was actually originally owned by Chris Runge, who I did a little bit of training with. As you can see up here, he signed it, and there's the vehicles that he built using it. Chris Runge's a buddy of mine, and I really look up to his work and who he is as a person. So, Chris, if you're watching this, shout out to you. Back in the corner over here is where our grinding corner, essentially. So we have this jet belt grinder with a spinning disc on it, also from Trick Tools. Typical bench grinder, I think it's like Harbor Freight brand. Then we have this chop saw that I love. It's a cold cut saw that has a carbide blade. Super handy. This is where we keep our sheet, our extra sheet here. There's some steel here, some aluminum, and then we have a lot of body steel back here. Spin around here, keep going around in a circle. This is our little shrinking stump here, and vise, extra junk table. It usually gets piled with this junk because I don't use it a whole lot for anything that I'm making. This is probably the world's worst drill press. I hate this thing with a passion. I don't use it. We have our glass bead blaster here. We have our soda blaster over there. We have a poster that I keep forgetting to hang from Dagger Tools. Shout out to Dagger Tools. I'm gonna put your poster up at some point here. I just need to put it on the block, and I haven't found my drill bit for that, which I have one. It's sitting over here somewhere, and it's destroyed. So yeah, I'm gonna get to that at some point. Earlier I mentioned the clay work on the Slantnose. This is the fender I cut off of it after we finished the mirroring the passenger side, and then flip it over to the driver's side. I need to take it off to put the steel work on. So this is the clay work I was talking about, where it has rough steel work underneath and then clay slathered over top to get the shape that we wanted. This is our junk corner over here where we have all our stock. We have pipe stock and rod stock, other panels that we bought that were pre-stamped that are just scrap leftovers. Here we have our Christmas tree of hammers. These are all, I think they're mostly all from Dagger Tools. We have slappers, we have these big plastic mallets. This is a Christmas tree on wheels. Over in the center, we have this welding table. This is what we use for any kind of heavy hammering you want to do that is a large piece, or if you want to jig up something that you don't need like a perfectly flat table. It's pretty close, but you know, it's not like it's a machining flat table. But you can also weld on this. This is raw steel. You can put your ground clamp on it and you can weld whatever you want. Adjacent to it, we have our wooden table. I think that every shop doing any kind of body work that's like coach work like this needs a wooden table, because then you can lay your panels down on something that's non-marring. Whereas if I was doing sheet metal work and I had a panel all polished out, but I need to take it back off to do a little bit of dolly work or whatever, I don't want to lay it on a raw steel table. I want to lay it on something that's softer. It's not going to mar it up. So this is our wooden table. It absorbs blows. It's just nice. Back over here, we have our like machining area. We have two Eastwood branded like hobbyist grade machining implements, I guess. We have our lathe here. This mini lathe actually is extremely surprising with how well it can handle what we throw at it. The other day I was machining, it was an air hammer piece, and I mean, it is pulling pigtails off pretty good for something that's hardened steel. It's actually a phenomenal piece of machinery. I had a couple of little problems with it, but they're all just little things that can be fixed easily, like a handle breaking off or whatever. So, but otherwise, for the price, it's a phenomenal piece of machinery. We have our 3D printer here. It's an Ender 6. I either print parts for cars that we're building, but I also do fun things on the side. Like Tony and I both actually are having to Dungeons & Dragons. In fact, right now, I'm printing a model for my friend. It's a Dungeons & Dragons character he made. Ender 6 is a phenomenal piece of machinery. Again, for a entry-level printer, it was a little finicky to figure out, like unlike a Prusa, say. But once I got dialed in, I'm actually very impressed with it. And I've done other like materials that were higher grade, like ABS and ASA, and it had to work out pretty okay. Is that to put a bag over the top to keep the heat in. In fact, the print is finished, so that's pretty neat. Right beside that, we have our Eastwood mini mill, which is like along their product line as the mini lathe. The mini mill, it's impressive. It's not the most perfect piece of machinery. Again, it is hobbyist grade for the most part, so you got to be careful with levers and stuff that you don't over torque it, that you don't strip anything out. But if you need to machine basic pieces of material like a bracket or something like that, it's a pretty good piece of machinery. Now, over in the center here, we have are Harbor Freight branded English wheels. This is the one I started on. This wheel I actually reinforced, as you can see here, to get it to just work the way I wanted it to. It would flex around stuff when I used it. Otherwise, I had the wheel was turned on a lathe to get the other lathe marks out of it. When you buy these, they have these lines that are grooved into the wheels, which actually messes up the panels that you're trying to make. So I had my wheels polished at the time. Now we have the English wheel over there, so it's kind of doesn't apply anymore. This is kind of their extra one. What's nice about it is it's a little thinner, so if you want to do smaller pieces, it's a good thing to have like on hand. To go with that, actually, the other English wheel, this is all of our English wheel anvils we own. We have our planching anvils, our English wheel anvils here. We do have the skinnier ones, the skinny attachment for the larger wheel. Again, that wheel was the best wheel I've ever used in my life and probably ever will be. And we have a plethora of different style anvils here of different radiuses, along with a radius gauge that you can use to check your panels and match them to the wheel you're using. And these are the these are the planching anvils, or I think call them anvils. I don't call them anvils. These planching anvils have different radiuses, just like the wheels do for shaping panels. That's where I keep them here. This is our Planching Hammer. Again, this is like a Harbor Freight branded hammer that we modified. I believe it was Desert Tools? Desert Tools? Yeah, I think it was Desert Tools who made those dies, because the ones that came with this are not very great. But they make a different replacement post adapter. I have this taped here because it has the linear shaping die on it, and it'll spin if you don't tape it. But for a starter, or even if you modify it, this is a great planching hammer, but we have our eyes on a better one. JRM Tools makes the Milwaukee style planching hammer, and that's what we're definitely going to get someday. We just haven't gotten it yet. Next to that, we have our Lathe Bead Roller. Definitely my favorite bead roller I've ever used. I went to a Lathe class like, oh man, I don't know, 4 years ago, I think it was, for the intro level class. The Lathe class was probably the first thing that I did that really connected dots with metal shaping. So we have this Lathe bead roller along with a plethora of different dies for it. Bead rolling is something that you can pick up and start, and it's fun, and then to take it to the next level, it takes a lot of work and practice, and it's something that I'm learning, and I enjoy it, but it is tough sometimes. But it helps when you have a good piece of equipment with lots of dies. I love this machine. And then next door to that, we have our Dagger Tools Deep Throat Shrinker Stretcher. You change the dies out here. I tacked this thing on here to hold the extra dies. Right now I have it set for shrinking, which I usually have it set for. This is a Deep Throat edition, so it actually will fit in larger panels. It'll have a deeper grab. I love this piece of machinery. I have a vice grip on it here because there's a pin that likes to walk out that I'm actually going to make a little bracket for, and I just haven't gotten around to doing. But this right here is what I think every sheet metal or fabrication shop that does sheet metal should have. This thing, it wasn't terribly expensive, and it's extremely high quality. And aside from this pin walking out, which might even be my own user error, I'm not sure, this thing is awesome. So shout out again to Dagger Tools. We use a lot of your equipment to go along with that. Over here's my hammer cart where I keep my most used hammers and dollies and slappers. These 3 slappers here are again Dagger Tools. I have bought these Matco Tools hammers as these 3 here were my first hammers I ever bought when I became a body man, like, what was that, like 8 years ago? These are the first tools I ever bought. This one was one of those stupid shrinking, quote unquote shrinking hammers that I ground flat. I'm not a huge fan of those. They don't actually shrink. But yeah, then you have my dollies here. Down below, it's a mess currently, but we have our profile gauges. These really long ones from Trick Tools are super handy. So yeah, that's the majority of the shop over here. The other project we have sitting next to the Slantnose here is a 986 Boxster that we're going to be doing a rebody on. I can't say quite what it is yet that we're going to be doing, but it's coming up soon, and I'm really excited to talk about that. Probably next month, maybe less. We'll see. We have some really big plans for this. I didn't personally do it, but Translog did a carbon Gia rebody on a Boxster a while ago that was very popular and featured in magazines. And this is what this was originally going to be, and we've changed direction. Actually changed direction a couple times of a couple different cars. We have many designs that we want to do, and this one's going to be an aluminum body, I can say that. But I think that if you guys think that the Slantnose over there like broke the internet, this is the one you want to keep an eye out for. I know that YouTube, a lot of time when people do like vlog style videos for their cars that they're building, usually start to finish. The Slantnose here obviously is pretty close to done. I say close to done, it needs a lot of work, but don't worry if you're late to the game. This is the one. This one right here will be your starting point. So thanks for coming along today on the shop tour and just talking about the cars in the shop. Tune in next week where I'm going to be making panels for the car. I'm going to probably do the quarter panel, the lower quarter panel, the Slantnose. I'm going to show the process of how I make a pattern and mirror it and go through all that, which I do on my TikTok often, but I haven't done on YouTube. So I'm going to do YouTube for them, which will be more information, and it'll be, you know, horizontal instead of vertical. Make sure you do all those YouTube things like, comment, and subscribe and all that stuff so I can keep an eye on the metrics and know what I'm doing good or not doing good. And make sure you turn on post notifications because then you will see when I put the next video up where I do all those things. And I'll see you guys next week. Later.